Magnolia felt her heart shrink when she found her beloved son curled up in bed. His heart-wrenching cries echoing throughout the room. The scene took her breath away. And her heart seemed to want to burst from her chest. Oh my God. My son. What's wrong? My love. Why are you crying? The woman was completely alarmed. Her trembling hands reaching out to him. Caressing him with both tenderness and desperation. Tell mommy what happened to you. Without saying a word. Her son clung tightly to her neck in an embrace that seemed endless. I'm here with you. Dear. You can trust me. The little boy continued to sob. Why don't you want to talk? Magnolia grew increasingly worried about Crispin's silence until the boy finally revealed the reason for his tears. A shiver ran through Magnolia's body, leaving her breathless. She could not process what her ears were hearing from her little boy. Sweetheart. What you just mentioned is very serious. Are you sure about what you're saying? Yes. Mommy, Crispin replied. His voice choked with tears. The mother was left speechless. She found her beloved son curled up in bed. His heartbreaking cries echoing through the room. The sight left her breathless. Her heart seeming to leap out of her chest. For God's sake. My son. What happened to you? Her hands trembled as she approached him in sheer panic. Gently caressing him while feeling overwhelmed with despair. Tell mommy what happened. Please say something. She choked on her words. Her son clung tightly to her neck, holding on as if it were endless. His crying made her feel helpless. I'm here with you. Dear. You can trust me, she whispered comfortingly. But the little one continued to cry. Unwilling to speak. Magnolia grew increasingly worried. After a period of Crispin's silence, the boy eventually revealed the reason. A chill ran through her body, making it hard to breathe. She struggled to understand what was being conveyed to her ears. She learned some shocking information from her son's words. Dear. What you just did was very serious. Are you sure you know what you were doing? She asked. Yes. Mom, Crispin responded in a hoarse voice. The mother's eyes filled with tears as childhood memories surfaced. She remembered what her grandmother had once told her, for God's sake. Child. Why didn't you tell us earlier? She said helplessly. Magnolia was completely stunned by her son's confession. The mother fell silent for a moment. And a few seconds later, fear enveloped her heart. Her face seeming to recall something terrifying. Nana warned me that if I told my parents anything, she would hurt me. And that's why I'm very scared. Saying this, he burst into tears again. No one will hurt you. My love. That's why your dad and I are here. To protect you. She hugged him tightly against her chest. And they stayed like that for a while until the little one calmed down. Upon returning to the kitchen, a deep anguish seized Magnolia, shattering her inner peace and filling her spirit with profound unease. She had no idea what to think about what her son had just revealed. The mother, deeply worried about Crispin's account, had also noticed some inconsistencies in her son's story. Additionally, she knew that the boy often lies about other things. So she wasn't sure whether to believe him or not. I can't believe what my son has told me. It's impossible that I wouldn't have noticed something like this happening in my own home, she thought. The uncertainty that plagued her was mixed with profound sadness. That night, When her husband Ricardo returned from work, Magnolia told him what had happened. But her husband didn't believe anything her son said. "Woman. For God's sake. How can you think that about Melissa?" Ricardo's reaction was one of total disbelief. "You know our son always invents stories to get attention. And don't you dare mention to Melissa the story Crispin made up. What a pity for that poor woman." Magnolia and her husband Ricardo had known Melissa for years and knew she was an excellent person. Very responsible and respectful. She had always shown herself to be a serious and upright woman. And Magnolia had great respect for her. Due to Crispin's previous lies, his father dismissed his accusations and convinced Magnolia. As it wasn't the first time their little son had made up astonishing stories that were later discovered to be false. After the uncomfortable incident, both parents decided to downplay the situation and opted to end the conversation. Days passed. And everything went on normally until that afternoon when Magnolia returned from work after a very exhausting day. She found Melissa nervous and evasive, seeming to be hiding something. "What's wrong? You look pale. It's as if you've seen a ghost. Where is Crispin?" Magnolia was surprised by the nanny's nervous behavior. "It's nothing, Mrs. Magnolia. I just have something important to do. Crispin is in his room. See you tomorrow." Saying this, she hurriedly left as if fleeing the scene. Crispin tried to resist, fighting with all his might. But it was in vain. Darkness took hold of his small, defenseless self as she continued with her malevolent actions. Ignoring his tears and fear, Magnolia felt overwhelmed by a powerful indignation that began to consume her heart. She was now convinced of the truthfulness of her son's accusations. And the thought that someone she had entrusted with the safety and care of her precious child could be doing something so inappropriate was unbearable to her. Again with the same issue. "Are you going to keep giving credit to that lying child's accusations? It seems like you don't even know your own son." Faced with her husband's annoyed attitude, Magnolia decides to remain silent to calm the situation. But now she is more confused than ever and doesn't know what to think. What if Ricardo is right? It's true that little Crispin tends to make up many stories. But what if this particular story is true? This thought leaves her chilled and sleepless. As she tosses and turns in bed, unable to sleep, Magnolia thinks, "But what can I do? God, please give me a sign. And if I talk to Ricardo? No. I can't talk to my husband about this. He would become furious with me." Suddenly, an idea crosses her mind, and her eyes shine with joy. If this idea is perfect for discovering the truth. After much thought, Magnolia decides to take drastic measures to uncover the truth without her son, husband, or even the watchful nanny suspecting anything. With trembling hands, she strategically installs security cameras in every key area of her home. Once the task is completed, a shiver runs down her spine as she looks at the cameras now monitoring every room. Her heart races at the thought that a terrible secret is about to be uncovered. 4 days. Upon returning from work, the woman anxiously reviews the videos, clinging to the hope of finding something that would resolve the mystery. But to her disillusionment, the result is always the same: nothing. Absolutely nothing out of the ordinary happens in her home. Is it possible that the nanny discovered the cameras? Or is she so intelligent and cautious that she leaves no trace? Dark thoughts and unanswered questions consume her when she continues her routine. unable to escape the constant uncertainty that fuels her obsession of spending long hours reviewing the footage. One night, while watching one of the videos, Magnolia notices something strange. The image that appears before her eyes is so shocking that her body trembles completely. And a shiver runs through her entire being when her eyes explore every detail of the scene. Magnolia was baffled by this situation and didn't know how to handle it. The following night, she gathered Melissa, Ricardo, and Crispin in the spacious living room. As they all looked at each other, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and a faint tension lingered in the air. "How is it possible that you installed security cameras in the house without consulting me?" Ricardo exclaimed angrily, his voice echoing through the room. "Calm down, dear. Save your energy for when I tell you what I discovered in the recordings," Magnolia said, taking her seat in the main armchair. She stared at her son with a serious expression on her face. The room was filled with an almost suffocating silence. Melissa, Ricardo, and Crispin kept their eyes fixed on her, displaying a mix of surprise and fear. Each passing second seemed endless, further heightening the growing suspense that enveloped them. With a measured voice, Magnolia began to recount the most disturbing details she had found. It turned out that in the recordings, it is clear that Crispin is the one exhibiting inappropriate behavior towards Melissa, Magnolia said, casting an accusing glance at her son, who had gone pale at his mother's accusation. Turning to the nanny with an expression of shame, she said, "Please, Melissa, forgive me for doubting you and for the terrible behavior of my son. But why didn't you tell us about this?" Melissa was completely flushed and replied, "Mrs. Magnolia, don't worry. Crispin is just a little boy. I thought I would gradually correct his behavior." Immediately, Ricardo became furious, thought he was about to warn Crispin in an attempt to reprimand him. However, both Melissa and Magnolia intervened to prevent it. "You shameless boy. This is the last straw. Crispin, go to your room right now and don't come out until I say so. I'm fed up with your lies and causing us problems. I hope you understand once and for all that I won't tolerate any more of your fabrications and lies." The little Crispin remained completely still, glaring at his father as if challenging him. A slight glimmer of anger appeared in his eyes, as if an internal flare was about to erupt. "I told you to go to your room. Didn't you hear me?" Ricardo repeated in an authoritative tone as he saw his son not moving. Magnolia intervened. "Son, obey your father. Please. Go to your room," she said to Crispin, trying to calm her husband and prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. Crispin stamped his feet on the floor, clearly upset by his father's reprimand and even more frustrated because his mother had also joined in. As he headed to his room, he muttered under his breath, "I just did what Dad does," though it was a barely audible whisper. Magnolia clearly heard what her son said, even though Crispin's barely audible comment left Magnolia very troubled. She decided not to pay it much attention at that moment because everyone's tempers were running high. Still somewhat calmed down, the comment from her son continued to echo in her mind. What could Crispin have meant? Magnolia began to suspect that something was wrong and that her son might have been referring to something even worse. That thought made her heart race with intensity. Suddenly, a thought crossed her mind and sparked Magnolia's suspicion. "I still have some recordings to review," She hadn't told anyone yet that she had installed hidden cameras throughout the house, including the guest room. Although Magnolia had been watching the videos every night, she had only viewed the main ones from her son's room and the living room. She hadn't deemed it necessary to check the footage from the other cameras she had set up around the house patio, kitchen, guest room. With slow and trembling steps, Magnolia discreetly left and headed toward in the dark corner of the room where the monitor was. A feeling of anguish invaded every inch of her being. But still, she did not stop. With trembling hands, she turned on the screen, preparing to face the unknown. The room filled with tension as the cursor moved through the endless list of recordings. A wave of desperation flooded her when she witnessed the infamous scenes one after another on the monitor. But what is this? My child. No, with great fury inside her, Magnolia left the room and headed back to the living room. Hey. You too. Come with me. Melissa and Ricardo looked at each other, surprised by the way Magnolia had come in and interrupted their pleasant conversation. But what's wrong? My love. Why the look of terror? Don't tell me she has done one of her pranks again. I need you to see something that will leave you speechless. Come with me. Both of them stood up, doubtful. But upon Magnolia's insistence, they decided to follow her. Once inside the room that housed the closed-circuit control center, Magnolia showed Ricardo and Melissa a video that made them pale instantly. Magnolia's heart raced as she pointed out the scene displayed on the monitor. Do you recognize these people? I'm sure you do. It was a video. Little Crispin seems to be spying through the open door of the guest room. And there, in that room, Ricardo and Melissa are clearly seen having an affair. Suddenly, the world around her seemed to fade, and Magnolia exploded with rage. So that's where my poor little angel picked up that behavior of yours. You pair of traitors. Magnolia's eyes sparkled with fury. Now everything is very clear. My son realized how affectionate his father was with the nanny and imitated that behavior. Love. Let me explain. Ricardo tried to approach his wife with a loving tone, but she rejected him outright. Magnolia interrupted him with an ironic tone. There's nothing to explain. It's all very clear in the recordings. Mrs. Magnolia. Melissa tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. Shut up. Don't you dare even mention my name. She shot them a look full of rage. You two get out of my house right now. After facing days filled with tension and tough decisions, Magnolia, brave and determined, finally made the firm resolution to end her marriage with Ricardo. Fortunately, she retained custody of Crispin, who, now more mature, understands clearly that his father's actions were wrong. Although the sadness and emotional toll of a divorce were present, the light of a new life began to appear on the horizon. Some time later, she learned that Melissa had left Ricardo for another man. Over time, Magnolia found another man who truly loved her and also had a genuine affection for little Crispin, treating him as if he were his own child. They decided to marry and now enjoy a happy and complete family. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story. While walking with his daughter through a less privileged neighborhood, the rich Mexican businessman Hector Sousa misplaced his wallet, which contained a large sum of money. A homeless boy who had recovered the wallet asked for an unusual reward. which brought tears to the millionaire's and his daughter's eyes. After a long day on the ferry from San Diego, California, Hector Sousa discovered his wallet was gone. Forbes profiled Sousa, a millionaire from Mexico who is well known for his charitable work and participation in Mexico's upper class. He had amassed substantial wealth since 1990 through investments in large retail chains and the distribution of food, clothing, and medical aid to the poor in Latin America and Mexico. Here we are talking about the day that Sousa and his 18-year-old daughter, Margarita Sousa, were visiting a popular tourist destination on the west coast of the United States. Margarita had accompanied her father on several trips to the United States, but she never got the opportunity to see as much as she had wished. Her father took a week off work to accompany her on her dream vacation to the United States, which she had asked as a special celebration of her coming of age. A buddy of Sousa's at a Californian luxury hotel company had painstakingly planned the entire vacation. They were in San Diego after a 3-day American adventure that included stops at Disney World, a drive through Los Angeles, and now they were back on Coronado Island, where they intended to spend the next day seeing a zoo or water park. Coronado was popular overall, but Hector was interested in checking out the disadvantaged district that was home to a significant Mexican population. Since Margarita had little interest in low-income areas, she was let down by the birthday trip there. Still, she tagged along in order to keep the peace. Hector discovered his wallet was gone while they were making their way back to the city on a packed summer ferry. He rummaged in his pockets, questioned his daughter about seeing it, and surveyed the boat from every angle. Margarita wanted to know how much time had passed since he had emptied the wallet. According to Hector, he had last spent his money on a trinket during his visit to the island's impoverished section. Do not go there, as I warned you, father. The robbery was obvious to you, Margarita said angrily. Hector rebutted by saying he couldn't say for sure whether it had been stolen. He made the assumption that the wallet might have been lost among all the foreign tourists aboard the boat. Margarita urged everyone to examine their surroundings. Don't you think if someone had found it, they would have returned it by now? Hector pleaded with whomever could have the wallet to get in touch with him so he could get it back. Unbeknownst to Margarita, a monumental shift was about to occur in her life. Hector had returned to the motel 2 hours ago, and still hadn't heard anything regarding his misplaced wallet. The tour boat crew had looked everywhere but came up empty. Margarita was the most apprehensive of them all since the rich might sue the transportation firm for her much-anticipated birthday bash. She knew her father's wallet had not just cash but also multiple credit cards. In an exasperated tone, Margarita asked her father, "Don't you understand? They used you for their own benefit. You went to that impoverished area intending to help. But now you saw the results. On my birthday, you took me there. And now look at the outcome." After calming down, Hector told Margarita he loved her but that she should broaden her view of the world. There was still a lot for her to learn, even though she was maturing. "Have you ever thought that I've had it easy?" he remarked. "I've seen the other side." Hector brought up the fact that he was born into poverty in Mexico City's poorest district. He came from a family of cooks and tailors. As a teenager, Hector helped out with the family budget by working at a department shop. He was only able to pursue his academic interests after he became 24. Back then, he was a store supervisor who had to put up with nasty supervisors and customers on his way to where he is now. He went on to say that he had to take bus to work every day and that there were occasions when he couldn't even purchase breakfast. He had to forego lunch on occasion. But it had all worked out for the best. There must be some way I got lucky. Don't you? He told his daughter that luck can also alter course of events. The loss of Margarita's mother was a devastating blow. And he recalled meeting her while he was finishing college. He may have been wealthy. But it wouldn't have saved her. A sobering lesson in humility was served to him by this tragedy. Hector Souza gained notoriety as a philanthropist after this terrible occurrence, which occurred while Margarita was only 3 years old. Despite the setback to their anniversary plans, Hector and Margarita were able to relax in the 5-star hotel they had reserved a month in advance, a luxury that not many can afford. While Hector recollected this, Margarita remained silent and attentive. An unknown number called Hector's phone the next day. The caller claimed to have located Hector's wallet and gave him an address just outside the tourist area when he replied. As her father was about to leave, Margarita noticed his smile and objected, saying, "Dad, think about it. It can be a trap or a fraud. How do we know they actually located your wallet?" Hector told her not to worry, adding that the caller's child seemed like a reliable voice. The security guy arrived when Margarita called for him, and he helped them and gave them the rundown. Upon entering Margarita's room, the security guard told Hector not to go to the address. Hector made the decision to follow his gut and keep looking for the wallet in spite of this in order to make sure the trip's festivities could go ahead as scheduled. The three of them then departed from the opulent hotel and made their way to the specified address. They were entering a much more modest and poorly lighted neighborhood as they drove down the avenue, away from the brightly lit tourist area. Margarita was scared. Her birthday had become a dangerous escapade. Every time a motorbike went by their automobile, especially when they had to stop at a red light, her heart raced. Margarita grew anxious, looking around at the cars as though she thought someone was about to shoot them. She was really afraid of this place, and the bodyguard did nothing to calm her fears. Hector, on the other hand, didn't appear to care, finding some comfort in the surroundings that took him back to his childhood. Margarita was perplexed as to how her father, whose life was in jeopardy, could maintain such composure. They eventually reached the location in a community of quite basic homes. Hector was not allowed to exit the car by the bodyguard. Hector clapped his hands, and a toddler with a strong grip on the wallet emerged. As the bodyguard gave Hector the wallet, the boy stood at the gate. Hector recognized the wallet right away and saw that his credit card, paperwork, and cash were still inside. There was nothing lacking. The lad, skinny and with brilliant eyes, probably around 13, was dressed in shabby clothes that reminded Hector of his own childhood. After stepping out of the vehicle, Hector and Margarita thanked the boy for giving back the wallet. "You saved me a great deal of hassle." "I'm grateful," Hector remarked. The child used the occasion to make a request for $2. This made Margarita laugh tensely. "You see what I told you? We're glad we brought a bodyguard," she remarked. "What's the matter, daughter?" Hector inquired. "Dad, give him the whole amount of money now, before his pals arrive." "Let's leave now," Margarita pleaded. The youngster felt embarrassed by her response and said, "Madam, it's not like that. I had to spend the little money I had to call you from a public phone since I just don't have a phone." I begged on the street all night long without receiving anything. Since my sister's birthday is tomorrow, I spent my funds to get her a cupcake. The youngster told Hector his story, and Hector asked him to go on. Margarita became more horrified as the boy spoke. The child identified himself as Paul and said he had few memories of his early life. He had been living on the streets for more than a year with his mother and sister, a few blocks away from the rest of his family, without knowing who his father was. A number of homeless folks camped out there for the night. Back in their tiny flat, Paul reminisced about his birthday and the cake his mother had cooked to celebrate. The youngster had only ever attended one party. It was the happiest moment of his life. Even if the cake was modest and only his mother and younger sister shouted "Happy Birthday" to him, he wanted to make sure his sister experienced the same happiness even after they were evicted. Paul consequently had to beg for cash on the street in order to purchase a cake for his sister. Margarita put her hands on her chest and wept uncontrollably. Previously fearful of that location and dubious of the boy's motives, the girl now felt guilty of her snap decisions. Moreover, Margarita and Paul's sister happened to share the same birthday. To everyone's surprise, Margarita gave Paul a card from the opulent hotel she was staying at, telling him, his mother, and sister to come back the next day. Before she took out his wallet and gave the youngster $300, she sought her father for permission. Please purchase clothing for your family and yourself using this money. If not, it's possible that you won't even reach the hotel, she said. Hector Souza led the bodyguard to the restaurant he had booked for Margarita's birthday celebration after they said their goodbyes. But Margarita stopped him, requesting that he go back to the hotel. "Daughter." "What's wrong?" said the millionaire. "Dad. Paul's family could be fed for a month for the price of one night here, okay? Let's just get back to the hotel and place a pizza order while we decide what to do tomorrow." Hector nodded and turned to face his daughter, beaming with pride at the way his years of charity had shaped her. Paul, his mother Elizabeth, and sister Cindy showed up early at the clothes store the following morning. They felt better and departed with new clothes. With Margarita's generosity, they had enough money for breakfast for the first time in over a year in addition to clothes. They paid for their hotel reservations with some of the money and still had plenty left over. They felt intimidated and overawed upon discovering the hotel was a 5-star facility. Paul's mother was at a loss for what to do as she had always fantasized about seeing a location like this. The family was shown to a garden with a lush lawn, a flower-adorned table, and vibrant decor as soon as they entered the lobby. With her tiny eyes gleaming with astonishment, Paul's sister described it as the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. In response, Margarita said it meant the world to her and broke into a smile. Many of the families with children staying there showed up for the birthday celebration, which Hector had organized through his acquaintance, the hotel chain manager. The kids played and ran around the garden with Cindy and Paul, finally realizing her father's feelings for assisting others. Margarita rejoiced with the kids. Paul and Cindy spread a huge chocolate cake with mousse and savored their first taste. With tears in her eyes on her first day of being 18, Margarita gave Elizabeth, Cindy, and Paul's mother a sincere hug. They were ecstatic. Hector took Elizabeth to see the manager of his hotel after realizing that the family would not be able to maintain itself with only one birthday celebration. Despite the family's struggles, the millionaire expressed his surprise that her son had returned the wallet in the same condition as found. He thanked Elizabeth and said that only a decent upbringing could produce such purity. She was grateful for his warm remarks. The property manager then dropped hints that he might have more assistance to provide. He came clean about his recent discovery of a cleaner's involvement in a petty stealing plot at the hotel. International guests didn't find out about the theft until they got back to their own countries. She and 2 other employees had been stealing from them. The supervisor proceeded to explain that they had fired everyone and needed to renew the workforce after identifying those implicated, which caught Elizabeth off guard. He said that the new team needed a leader who was trustworthy and self-assured, regardless of the circumstances. Your son altered the destiny of your entire family the moment he returned that wallet undamaged, the manager said to Elizabeth. I can make you an offer to be chief chambermaid if you're interested. Are you in agreement? This is what he asked Hector. That makes me very happy, Hector said in response. She truly deserves it. A gasp escaped Elizabeth's lips. In the past, she had never dreamed that she would be given a job while attending her daughter's birthday celebration at a hotel like this. In an effort to hide her shame, she confessed that she had doubts about her qualifications for the job. Her boss calmed her, saying, Well, Miss Elizabeth, you already possess the most important qualities, character and integrity. A fresh phase of the family's story began the week after that. In their brand new uniforms and backpacks, Paul and Cindy got on the school bus, while Elizabeth rode the bus to the outskirts of town to begin her new work at the 5-star hotel. To her, it seemed like she was the luckiest woman alive. Hector and Margarita persisted with their itinerary as planned. But nothing could top the joy Margarita had at the hotel garden party. She could see in her father's face the reason he was never content with amassing wealth. He found fulfillment in making a positive impact on the lives of others. At last, it clicked for her. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.